So let's now work on the components we need here. And I'm going to start with the coach items here. For that, I want to use a separate component because we'll have quite a lot of markup and styling related to this part, related to these list items. And I don't want to put that all into coach's list, even though that of course would work. I mean, technically you can build an entire Vue app with just one component, but the idea behind components is to split your code into smaller reusable pieces. Therefore, in components, I'll add a new subfolder coaches where all the coach-related components should go in. For example, the coach item.vue file. Now in this coach item.vue file, I want to define my template, which is a list item, or which holds a list item. And in there, I now want to output all that coach data. For example, in a h3 tag, the name of the coach. Here I will interpolate the full name. And this doesn't exist yet, but we'll add the logic to make sure we will have such a full name property at the end. Then below that, a h4 tag. And I recommend that you use the same tags so that the styling which I provide works for you as well. Technically, of course, you can use any tags you want and any structure you want. But here in the h4 tag, I want to output $, then the rate which we get for this coach, /hour to show the rate this coach charges. Then I will actually add a div here where I want to output the areas of expertise of that coach, because the dummy data I gave you already has this areas property, which holds an array with some clearly defined keys, frontend, backend, and career, which are the areas of expertise I want to support in this app, where a coach can be an expert. I'm an expert in all these areas, of course. Julie, for example, is an expert in career and frontend. And I want to output that here in coach item in that div. Here I want to go through these areas and render a badge for every area, so to show which areas of expertise this coach has. For the moment, I'll simply add a span here and add v4 on that to go through the area in areas, so to go through all the areas of expertise of a coach, add the key, which is the area itself, because it's unique anyways. A coach can't be an expert in the same area twice. And I then simply want to, for the moment, output my area like this. This will also become a separate component in the future, but for the moment, I'll leave it like this. And then below that, I'll have a div with a class of actions, where I want to render two buttons in the end, or two links, we could say. One to contact the coach, and to therefore go to this contact route, and one to view the details of a coach and go to this detail route. So therefore here I'll add a router link like this. And on the first router link, we're going to go to /coaches/ and then the coach ID. So that should be dynamic. For the moment, I'll hard code it though. /contact and say contact here. And the second link will then show us the details. So I will say view details here. And there I want to go to just /coaches/that coach ID. Again, I'll soon make this dynamic because of course the ID shouldn't be hard coded here. That's the general markup. Now for the styling, we're going to use some scoped CSS style, and attached you find the coach item CSS file, which contains those prepared styles, which you can simply paste between your style tags. And with that added, we can add a script here, and now make sure that this coach item works. The plan is to use this coach item in the coach list, so we will receive all the data we need through props in the end. Because we're going to render the coach item here. Here we have all the coach data, so we can then pass the coach data, which we need in coach item, through props. And we would do it like this because the data for a specific coach, especially in such a list, is of course not managed with Vuex. this is not application-wide state or anything like that. It's really just internal local state in this loop here, in this v4 loop. And therefore, that is a clear case for props. Hence here, we'll get some props. And I want the ID of the coach. We need that to construct this link. I want the first name and the last name. I want to have the rate and the areas of expertise. And then we can add a couple of computed properties here to make our life easier. For example, for the full name, which of course is a combination of first and last name. For that, I'll add a full name computed property here and return this dot first name plus a blank plus this dot last name. But also maybe for those links, which shouldn't be hard-coded. Here we could add a coach contact link computed property where we return /coaches/ and then the ID, so this ID refers to this ID prop which we're getting, plus /contact. This will then construct a path like /coaches/c1/contact, for example. And another computed property, the coach details link, where I want to return /coaches/ then again the ID, but then /nothing, because here we just want to go to something like this. Now we can also replace /coaches here if we want to. It's not necessary, but to make this component a bit more flexible, in case we should ever change this /coaches path to a different one, we can use this route path plus / to use whatever the current path is as a starting point to then build a longer path. This is totally optional, but it ensures that if we ever change our path from /coaches to something else in our route config, we don't have to adjust everything in this specific component. So that's why I'm doing this here. And now it's the coach contact link, which I want to bind to 2 here. So I want to bind 2 with a colon to coach contact link and bind 2 here with a colon to coach details link. And with that, we should have a reusable coach item component. Now back in the coaches list component here, I will replace this list item with my coach item component, which we just created. But of course, for that, we first of all need to register this component so that Vue knows it. And of course, it will be a local component in coaches list because we only use it there. So I will import coach item from going up 1 level, going up another level, because we're in the coaches folder in the pages folder, and then diving into the components folder, going to coaches, going to coach item.view. And here in this Vue components config object here, we add components and add our coach item component here. And with that, we can use it like this in the template. And here, of course, we now want to loop with v4, so coach in filtered coaches, bind the key to coach ID, but now also pass all the other props which we need here. So for example, the ID, bind it to coach.id again. Then pass in the first name, so first dash name, and bind that to coach.first name. Reformat that to make it a bit easier to read. Bind the last name. By the way, I'm using this kebab case here as I explained it earlier in the course. And bind this to coach.last name. And then bind the rate to coach.rate, hourly rate. Because on our coach data, if we have a look at that in the state, it's the hourly rate property which holds the rate. So hourly rate is what we have to access here in coaches list, and bind the areas to coach.areas. And if we do that and save it, we should see these coaches. This is clearly not super beautiful, but it is a start. Now to make this a bit nicer, in coaches list, I'll also add some scoped styling. And attached you find a coaches list.css file where you find 2 styles which you should copy into that style tag. With that, at least the bullet points are gone. But it's taking up the entire width here, and it's going from edge to edge, even if I zoom out a bit. And I would rather want that card look here. I want to have these items in a box with a light drop shadow. I want to have this typical card look, which we also saw earlier in the course already. And I want that card look in other parts of this app as well. For example, the filter should later also be in such a card, and other parts on other pages as well. Therefore, as a next step, I'll build this card base component, which we can then use in different parts of the app. And whilst we're at it, we'll also build a button base component, because we have a lot of buttons and also links that should look like buttons, like contact and view details, and therefore this is something that makes sense as well.